Alright, yeah, and welcome back to some more Magic Arena. Today we're jumping back into some standard 2022 with one of my favourite tribal decks. We're going to be playing Goblins, and it's not the Muxus degenerate Goblins that I absolutely despise. It's actually going to be a nice, fair, and traditional looking Goblins list. It's a mono-red aggro list, and a tribal one at that. So we've got lots of lords to play around with. This one has a couple of little bit of budget restrictions in my particular case. As you can see, I've got a weird rare split there, and only 3 out of 4 of the Den of the Bugbears. I think you probably should add a 4th den in here over a snow-covered mountain. There may be some Faceless Havens alongside it, but the list I'm working with now seems to be doing quite a fair bit of good for me anyway. Initially, I had it as a red-white Goblins list with Kabira Takedown and Rally the Ranks as cards that were in here. Rally is the 2-mana Lord effect if you name a creature type, which is really nice. As it turned out, though, too dirtly. We couldn't really compete with a lot of the control decks that are in this format, and I've gone up against quite a lot of control decks that really like to take good care of the board and allow you to not really establish too much. But once I took that out and fixed the mana base up a bit, that was kind of another problem with the red-white version, is the mana base kind of sucked. You had the pathways and you had the snarls, but the snarls meant that you had too many tap lands, and the Kabira takedowns just didn't seem like they were all that necessary. And yeah, what I ended up doing is going for 4 Frostbite and 3 Shocks instead as my removal package, instead of the Kabira takedowns, which deal damage equal to the number of creatures you control, which seems relevant to a Goblins deck, especially one with 32 creatures in it. We actually almost exclusively have creatures in our deck. This is the only non-creature package. So Frostbite deals 2 damage to a creature or planeswalker, and if you control 3 or more snow permanents, it deals 3 damage instead. That's another reason why the Snarls and the Pathways were real bad. This card is probably the best removal burn spell in Standard 2022 right now. And yeah, those lands were making it awkward and just making a bad shock. Speaking of, bad shock. We've got Shock in here. If you're wondering how it's in Standard 2022, it's kind of in here for the same reason that I have this Goblin Trashmaster. It's an arena set for a starter deck. So this has appeared in one of the starter decks, basically, which means it is legal on arena for best of 1 only. So that's why we're playing around with Shock. Tin Street Cadet is also one of those cards. It is an arena-only card for best of 1. And it's a 1-mana 1/1 that when it becomes blocked, it creates a 1/1 Goblin creature token. So trades itself off for itself in pretty general terms. We are an aggro deck, as I said, and we're also a Goblins deck, so I guess I'll go into the Lords a little bit. We've got Goblin Trashmaster, full 4 of on that one, and it says other Goblins you control get +1/+1, and then you can also sack a Goblin to destroy an artifact. I don't think there's many artifacts in Standard 2022 that you have to care about, to be honest, except for maybe a Seeker's Chariot. I think it's probably the big one. But yeah, if you're using a 1-drop to kill in a Seeker's Chariot, you're kind of doing a fair bit of good, but they're also leaving behind 2/2/2s, so it's hard to say whether or not you get your value from that. But either way, it's actually here just for the Lord effect, because the rest of our early game is trying to force our opponent into bad blocks and, you know, deal enough damage to their face as we're running Goblins into bad attacks. That's how they roll. We've also got Goblin Bandit Lord as well, 3-mana 2/3. Again, gives other Goblins +1/+1, but it also has an additional effect, which I think is probably more powerful than the Trashmasters. 1 red and tap, deals damage equal to the number of Goblins that entered the battlefield under your control this turn to any target. So we do have a couple of Goblins that make Goblins. Tin Street Cadet is one of them, as well as Battlecry Goblin, another kind of pseudo Lord effect is in a way. It's a 2-mana 2/2 with 2 mana. Give Goblins +1/+0 and haste until the end of the turn. So if you got 4 mana, this is a 3/2 with haste for 4, which is kind of nice. And it has Pack Tactics. So if you attack with 6 power or greater, you get to make a Goblin tapped and attacking. So that is a Goblin that's entering the battlefield for Hobgoblin Bandit Lord. That's quite useful there as well. We do have Den of the Bugbear, which also makes Goblins enter the battlefield. This is our way of closing out the game post-board wipe, because, as I said, there's a lot of control going around. So it is really nice to have that ability to actually pressure your opponent's life total post-board wipe without committing cards to the board that have summoning sickness to begin with, because that's usually how they get you. You never really get to attack in ever again after the board wipe unless you have these kind of tools. So that's why I would recommend 4 Den of the Bugbears and possibly even some Faceless Havens after today's games. It seems like they would have been quite nice, and they don't really impact the ability for Frostbite to deal that 3 damage. So yeah. Aggression. Fireblade Charger, a 1-mana 1/1. The top part doesn't matter. The bottom part says whenever it dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. It's really nice board wipe efficiency. So if we have Lords in play, it can be a 2/2 or a 3/3. So if it's a 3/3, we're going to lightning bolt our opponent's face when they wipe the board. Usually they're going to wipe the board when they're low on life as well, so Fireblade Charger could close out a game that way. And it's also one of those kind of dead if you block it, dead if you don't kind of scenarios in the late game, which is super useful. The Javelineer is a really nice early game aggro card as well. Looks like Draft Chaff, and it probably is in general, but 1-mana 1/1 with haste. When it becomes blocked, it deals 1 damage to the target creature blocking it. So any X1s are going to die and leave the Javelineer in play. So a good example of that is Professor of Symbiology, a 2/1 that would normally trade quite nicely into a lot of things. Is not going to trade very nicely at all into the Javelineer. Same thing for the Tin Street Cadet. If they block that, we get a 1/1 back anyway. So they're trading a card for nothing in a nutshell. Or a slightly worse version of Tin Street Cadet. We've got the Hobgoblin Captain, again, Draft Chaff, but, you know, we've got to work with what we've got with Goblins, and it seems to be working out just fine anyway. 2-mana 3/1, if you attack with 6 power or greater, which, you know, 3 power on board on turn 2, and the 1 power, that's going to be your 4 power there. It's going to be first striking on turn 3 quite a lot of the time. If you can do that, that's pretty good. Turn 3, you can put a Lord into play, for example, so that would be 4 and 6, and that would get you your decent attack, so really quite nice there, but does die to Shambling Gas a little bit too easily, so let's hope that we get some Goblin upgrades in the near future. Somehow I doubt it. Innistrad's not really a Goblin set, so I doubt we see too much changing with this deck, to be honest. Relic Robber. This was a new addition once I took out the white. Initially I didn't have it in here, but once I went more aggressive with my simpler mana base, Relic Robber just seemed to work perfectly. 3 mana 2/2 with haste. When it deals combat damage to a player, they create a 0/1 colorless goblin construct artifact token with this creature can't block, and at the beginning of your upkeep, this creature deals 1 damage to you. So it's ping over time. It can be a little bit bad in the control matchups, as I've mentioned, but those are kind of bad matchups for us in general. The reason why it can be bad is because it creates a creature for our opponent to use Deadly Disputes on and Plumb the Forbiddens and stuff like that, and Village Rites. If you are giving them a creature for that, it's kind of easy for them to remove it, but it's also quite nice damage over time for those decks that can't really do that, so super useful there. And yeah, I think that's essentially the deck. If you do enjoy today's video, I'd really appreciate it if you do hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this in the future. And without further ado, let's continue. This video is brought to you by the generous support of our wonderful patrons and channel members that you see here. If you'd like to support the channel and get access to cool content like sneak peeks, bonus videos, polls on future content, or access to a personal deck critique from myself every month, then hit the join button down below, or check out the Patreon link in the description. With all that said, let's get into the gameplay. Alright, we're in, and this hand is... it's fine. It's got a curve. It's got some removal as well. Weirdly, we're going to have to lead off with Den of the Bugbear, even though we have Frostbite in hand, but I don't think it'll matter too much. So we can go with the Cadet or the Javelineer. I think the Javelineer has haste, so we're going to go with the Cadet, so we can do Javelineer plus Frostbite next turn, maybe. I'm just going to go with a Professor of Symbiology, okay. So we can certainly do a little bit of interaction with this if we did want to go the Javelineer Frostbite plan. We could let them block the Cadet, get the Goblin off of it, and then Frostbite the Professor. Sacrificing essentially 1 point of damage for 1 point for future damage. And then that sets up their Goblin Lord as well. I think that's the line we're going to take. We have to be extremely aggressive against this deck because it's one that will just sweep the board on turn 5 most of the time. So they're actually just going to let it go. Didn't expect them to do that. Alright, well, we'll just play the Javelineer then. Our follow-up turn's always going to be Bandit Lord anyway, so... let's see what happens. I guess we could do Captain plus Frostbite, though. Which is less damage in a short space of time, but... ooh, Esper, eh? Okay. Well, we don't really have to worry about the blue mana as such, I don't think. Yeah, we're just going to go with the Bandit Lord. If they block the Cadet, we just get a Goblin off of it anyway. If they block the Javelineers, the Professor just dies. So, either way, I get to keep my 6 points that I'm attacking with for the next turn. Chop. Alright, half their life total remaining on the next attack. But I'm gonna have to imagine that they do have removal for the Bandit Lords. What's the card? Vanishing Verse is one that comes to mind. I just kind of need to go for it though, because the problem is if they have like Shadow's Verdict, that's going to be an issue. Relic Robber's interesting. They don't have Blood on the Snow because they don't have snow-covered basics. Could have Doomscar, but they have no double white. And they haven't foretold a card, so they haven't drawn it, I don't believe. I think because they are going to attack my Bandit Lord, I'm going to go with the Relic Robber, so they can either counter this or kill this. I don't think they can do both. I guess maybe if they had Jwari's Disruption, they could do it, so yeah. I guess it's a somewhat likely outcome. Jwari's Disruption's something I can play around, but I think if I played around it, then I'm playing into my opponent's creature removal a little bit as well. In that I'm just not providing an aggressive enough attack, and then they can stabilize. So they've got a Divide by 0 here. And they're going to go with Mascot Exhibition, though they're on 4 mana. Alright. So a little ways away from Mascot Exhibition. Usually you see, like, is it Necrotic Fumes? The 4 mana, sack a creature, exile a creature. Oh, they've got Reduced to Memory available as well. There's even a Divination that you could get, which I think I'd sooner... Ooh, Snow-Covered Mountain's a really nice hit, so if they did have the Disruption, they can't do much about it now, and yeah, I've got to go for it. So I'm going to swing in, see how much damage I can possibly do, and then I've got a Shock to finish it off. Hopefully. Might just have another Divide by 0 here, but they're going to need to do a little bit more than that. So yeah, there's the Vanishing Verse. So that's them on 3 with a token. And I think they can counter it if they had a counter anyway. So let's upkeep stop when the trigger's on the stack. They're dead to this trigger. Alright. Cool. If they had a counter for the shock there, they could stay alive, but they would spend the mana on their turn, and that means that they're not going to wipe my board. They could only really remove a creature, and my board state says that's not good enough. If we then, if they manage to board wipe and survive, we drew a land, which is like usually our worst draw. We can actually Den of the Bugbear and finish it off, and that should also, the tax should make sure that the Den gets through. So yeah, pretty good, pretty good. Alrighty, opponent goes first. This is a keepable hand. It's 1-drop plus 1-drop, 1-drop. Into Lord as well, so should get a fair bit done here. I think, like last game, we're going to lead with the Tin Street Cadet. They're probably more likely to have a blocker for this one this time around, but doesn't appear to be the case. So I'm going to go with, I think, Cadet and Javelineer. Those are the ones that are kind of hardest to block if they have, like, Shambling Gas and things like that. And if we draw a land, that's going to be fantastic. Battlecry Goblin. Well, I will get that out there, I think, post-combat. That's a good sign they've got no removal, I think. Let's see, 4 mana. Got the Blood Chief's Thirst. So this is a point where things start getting a little bit spooky in regards to playing into this board state. If they have, like, Shadow's Verdict, I'm getting, like, 5-for-1s on this turn. The Battlecry Goblin was kind of my way of surviving through that, because I could produce goblins on the attack and pump up, so it was kind of a threat that needed to be dealt with. As it currently stands, I don't really have that. I kind of feel like I just attack like this and don't commit much more. The Fireblade charges are nice if they don't get exiled, for example. And if one day that I decide I want to draw a 3rd land, then that's all good. Yeah, I think I'll do this. They can crew up their Faceless Haven, but could be worse. I'm just going to play my Battlecry Goblin here. Yeah, as I said, if they've got Blood on the Snow or something like that, it is a 5-4, and I think the Eye Witch is a good sign that they don't. They certainly wouldn't play Eye Witch if they were going to go land Shadow's Verdict, because Verdict is exile-based, and Eye Witch has a death trigger, so... Surprised I won that, honestly. We did get very aggressive with it. I mean, if we get to untap, we're attacking for, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 with the attacking Goblin, because this can pump, and I'm assuming the Eye Witch blocks the Battlecry Goblin. So it was actually going to be 8 with a Faceless Haven block. Really curious to see what that hand was and why on earth they thought it was a good idea to keep it, but yeah. 2 mana, Goblin 1-drops. Takes the victory here. On to the next one. Alrighty then, opponent goes first. We have a slow hand, but I think it's a hand I'm going to keep. Double Lord, double early game creature with removal. Heart the cards, Glacial Floodplains, probably very bad for us. Which means I'm going to go with the Tin Street Cadet. I want to get as much damage on board as possible, so although we can go for the haste, we can do that later. We've really got to worry about Doom Scars and stuff like that. So I want to get as much damage as I can in before that occurs. So in this case, it's going to be Javelineer, Fireblade Charger. They might go land Doomscar, and then that kind of sucks, but they didn't, so that's pretty good. So here I could attack for quite a fair bit with Hobgoblin Bandit Lord. And again, I play into a board wipe. They missed their land drop, so I kind of feel like I have to take advantage of it, even though I get punished quite severely for doing so. Tap land, fantastic. Punishing their greedy mana base here. I'm certainly not committing anything more to this board, though. I think that would be a horrendous mistake. So I'm going to put them to 4. Let them do their thing. Fireblade Charger hits them to 2. Relic Robber finishes the job. Alright, fantastic. Nice, quick, easy victory. And just turbo slam that into our opponent's face. There we go. Alright, yeah, definitely... We definitely benefited from our opponent being mana screwed. It does come with the territory of playing all of these no dual lands, though. And their other card was a Doomscar and a Behold the Multiverse, so... Yeah, we were going to get absolutely swept out repeatedly. So I think had they not been mana screwed, then we would have probably lost this one. We did get them pretty close to 0. So maybe a couple of shocks off the top might have done it for us. But yeah, in general, I think this was only our game because they had tap lands. Either way, punished greedy mana base. It's hard to do 3-colored mana bases in Standard 2022. There's not many decks that can pull it off. There's a few, of course, but yeah, I don't know if Esper's really one of them. Too many tap lands, in my opinion. Especially because you want like Blood on the Snow as well, so you have to play these tap lands, and maybe less so the Pathways, so and the Snarls if there are any. There'll be the Silver Quill Snarl, and then that'll be it, I think. Yeah. Either way, on to the next one. Alrighty, on the play, where we want to be, we've got a quite nice hand, actually. We're going to keep this one. So turn 1 Den with Tin Street Cadet to go. After that, I think it's 1-drop, 1-drop. That puts 3 points into play. Or maybe it's the Battlecry Goblin. I don't know. I guess it's going to depend on the matchup a little bit. If I feel like I'm going to get swept, then I believe that putting the 2-drop out instead of the 2 1-drops might be a better idea, because it makes us less of a horrible card trade-off. Though, you know, the earliest they can do is like Doomscar on turn 3. Anything else, I think we just kind of go all in for. Goblins is, obviously, by their usual playstyle, a very all-in kind of deck. What are you playing? But yeah, if I get the impression it's like single target removal based or something like that, which Swamp is certainly giving me those vibes. I think we go Cadet Javelineer then. And then we've got Goblin plus Frostbite. I'm not sure there's much that they could play this turn that I would Frostbite. Like, if they play Shambling Gas, that's going to kind of suck. If they play Professor of Symbiology, I'm happy to trade into it. I guess if they had the Aspirant, or whatever it's called. Hunt for Specimens. Yeah, I think I actually do Frostbite that and play a Goblin. That one seems worthwhile. They gain 1 life, but we don't lose a Goblin in the process. We get to attack for a little bit more. So a land would be fantastic, because then we could give this Battlecry Goblin in our hand haste and make a lot of tokens. I don't know if our opponent could come back from that. It would certainly be a lot of damage. It would put us on, or closer to, Den of the Bugbear activations. So if they have sweepers, if it is that kind of deck, which I believe it is, Snow-Covered Swamps are usually a good indication that Blood on the Snow exists. I'm not sure what color combo it is, though. Could just be mono black. It could be green black. I think green black runs. Does green black even run counter board wipes? Not sure it does. Can't quite remember. And where our opponent is not happy with this situation. Alright, Environmental Sciences gains a bit of life. Got Double Hive. We'll know if it's 2 colors by what they pick here, because yeah, I think they're mono black. And yeah, that was our best draw, I think. Next turn they can not do a great deal I care about, I don't think. I think by the time they go to sweep, we're going to be able to hopefully Den of the Bugbear to finish the last few points of damage. But yeah, I mean, single target removal's not going to get them there. They could have Crippling Fear. That would suck. They don't, though. And yeah, that should be it. So we swing, trigger the pack tactics, and then pump. Make absolutely sure our opponent is dead on as many axes as possible. Sweet. Yeah, a Crippling Fear is their 4-drop removal board wipe that they could have. Name everything but Goblin, or they could name like Zombie, and then it's a one-sided board wipe. So that would suck. But as we mentioned, I think we have to go all in, because if we wait a little bit longer, they can have Shadow's Verdicts and Blood on the Snows. And if we draw lands, then we activate our Den of the Bugbear, and that should close out the last little bit of damage that we need to anyway. Even dropping down Fireblade charges means that we have that death trigger on anything less than Crippling Fear and Shadow's Verdict, because Crippling Fear gives -/, so this would have negative power, so it wouldn't deal anything, so that would be a way of doing it. But yeah, sweet. On to the next one. Alrighty, turn 1, turn 2, turn 4 play. Seems good. It's certainly not the better of the hands I've ever seen, but we'll give it a shot. Our opponent's on Snowfield Sinkhole, and they said hello, so we'll say hello back. And it looks like it's that wonderful matchup. Good stuff. Right. Less than ideal with the Shambling Ghast. I have to ask myself, do I offer the trade there? I don't have to, I don't think, since I drew the Bandit Lord. So if I played this, I would have 5 damage attacking next turn. This would be enough. Alright. Okay. Alright, you're muted. Nobody got time for that. Yeah, so Deadly Dispute, probably getting rid of the Hobgoblin Bandit. Oh, the Hobgoblin Captain, sorry. Let's see if they follow up with anything else. A control player who's impatient. That's a bad control player if I've ever seen one. Alright. I'm going to take our time. Figure out the correct line of play. That we have to be concerned with Jwari's Disruptions, Shadow's Verdicts, Sweepers down the line. I like the idea of Relic Robber, but it plays into Jwari's Disruption and Shadow's Verdict. Not Shadow's Verdict, Vanishing Verse. I think I'm going to go with it, though. Because it adds creatures to the board, but not in the way that our opponent might appreciate. And I feel like I'm happy to continue this line for a while, yep, until they wipe the board. Land means I can go Battlecry Goblin and Haste as well. I think I'm just going to play mana efficient here with the Hobgoblin Bandit Lord. Again, I can give Haste to the Battlecry Goblin. If I draw my 4th land. Which I think is what I would do. Though, to be honest, the Professor is getting in the way. Because I don't really want to trade the Battlecry Goblin with it. So I could see myself going Battlecry Goblin, swing with just the Bandit Lord. Let's swing with the Bandit Lord first, I suppose. Yeah, I really don't want to commit too much to a board wipe. So this way, what I can do is I can play the Battlecry Goblin, which gives me the Pack Tactics next turn, and I can shock end step on the Professor. Another Professor. These ones are probably going to start getting mascot exhibitions, if I had to guess. It's about that time, yep. Third Professor. Good lord. Well, that's not ideal. We're going to shock one of them. Den of the Bugbear doesn't really change my turn at all, so there is that. I guess it could have allowed me to Battlecried, activate the Bandit Lord. As it currently stands, yeah, I think I'm just gonna... I'm playing into a sweeper, which is really annoying, but I don't think I've got a choice. Get a double block there. That says to me they don't have a sweeper, actually. They're at 4. If their only line of play is Blood on the Snow, we can do a lot of damage there. Blood on the Snow would give them back a Professor. So they would have a blocker. But it would at least be relatively close. Alright, so another Disciple. And they're just dead, right? Den of the Bugbear. And swing. Cool. Patience is a virtue. Good stuff. Alright, well, I think that's gonna do it for today's video. It might be a bit on the short side, but every time I say that, it's actually the length of video that I actually want to make, so maybe it's exactly what I wanted it to be. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's video, and hopefully it was exactly what you wanted it to be. And if it was, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more content like this in the future. I'd like to think that I make pretty consistent content in terms of quality. I don't know. Sometimes maybe not, but yeah, subscribe if you enjoyed today's video, because you probably will enjoy the rest of the things that come up. I do a lot of Brawl, Standard, and occasionally Historic, though. With the Historic Horizons coming up, I'm kind of a little bit less interested in playing Historic, since it's kind of a dead format up until that point. You know, there's new cards, there's no point exploring a format that's just going to change next week kind of thing, so yeah, we will be back with Historic in the future if you are a big Historic fan. I'm sure that format is going to be shaken up quite a fair bit with the new set release, and certainly going to be looking into it. And as a worst case, those cards are definitely going to make an impact on Historic Brawl, which is one of my favourite formats to play as well. But yeah, like, subscribe, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon alongside it, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys are playing in Standard 2022 right now. I'm kind of curious to see, because I think we're mostly on a complete exploration of the format right now. I don't know if it's necessarily solved, but kind of feels like we know what all the decks are now, and there's maybe nothing too powerful to crop up. I don't know. There's always a possibility that changes, and you know, next set isn't too far behind anyway. Good old set fatigue. Anyway, take care and have a wonderful night.